First in the tank is a solution to a serious problem in the kitchen.
Hi, Sharks. I'm Laura Lady. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, and today I'm seeking $250,000 for 10% stake in my company, FryAway. Sharks, there's a huge, stinking, rotting monster.
Whatever you're doing right now, I need you to stop what you're doing and give some super claps to Super Laura Lady. Woo! Welcome, Laura. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm so glad that we were able to make this work with our schedules and everything that, all the craziness that gets in the way of being able to just sit down and have a great conversation.
Yes, indeed.
So, Laura, let's jump right into what was your relationship with Shark Tank prior to ever thinking you would get to go on Shark Tank? Were you a fan, not a fan, never heard of it? How's your...
Yeah, no, my relationship was as an avid spectator. I feel like I've gotten to know the Sharks quite well through the years. And so I know we're going to get to this, but when Shark Tank came calling, I was extremely excited. And
it did come calling. So I guess they reached out to you about being on the show, not you applying.
That's correct. I had not really considered applying for the show, at least not at the time that it all happened. By the time I went on Shark Tank, my business had been live for 1 year, exactly 1 year. If I had my way, I probably would have wanted to wait a little bit longer just to have a little bit more, financial history, business history under my belt. It's one of those things that anyone that I spoke to about my product, would immediately say, "Oh my God, you've got to be on Shark Tank." So I had heard it enough times, to know that, the seed was planted. So when they contacted me, how do you say no? Like, you just don't, you don't turn down Shark Tank.
Did you believe it? Was it, did you feel like, this must be a scam, right? Like, this can't be.
Absolutely thought it was a scam. I mean, I get so many scam, emails, God, every day. And I keep myself from clicking on any attachment. I've told, anyone that works with me, they're not allowed to click on any attachment because it's just a fact of life. And so when I got the email, I of course did my due diligence and I, searched for the person, and sure enough, it was legit. So we scheduled some time to talk and got some of the the deets, the background, and a little bit of information on what the process would look like. And I had a little bit of time to think about it, but honestly, there wasn't that much to think about. It was absolutely something that I knew I had to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I get tons of scam emails as well, all kinds. And now I was just listening. Now we have to be careful even with phone calls because obviously you had to be careful with phone calls before, but now they can train a voice to sound like anybody with just a few sentences. That's, to me, that's super scary because that just means that it's going to be like that much harder to know that you're actually talking to the person that you think you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, your information is out there everywhere. So there's access. And it's not that hard to get into someone's inbox, right? So yeah, you have to be super vigilant because before you know it, you've been phished or scammed or whatever the correct term is of the day. As a growing business, I feel like you do have a bit of a target on your back, especially even before Shark Tank, we had gotten quite a bit of press coverage. And so as that starts growing and your visibility starts growing, you just have to be careful because there is somebody out there who's just trying to take it away from you, as crazy as that sounds.
No, it's not crazy at all. In fact, we had our first scam bots here on the channel in the comments, people posing as me,
Oh my God.
bots posing as me, I should say,
Yeah.
saying like, contact such and such on WhatsApp. And it's like, no, that's definitely not me. God, I thought it would take a lot longer before I got that kind of notoriety to
It
have
doesn't.
bots, going after me. Or my people, the super community at that, right? So,
Right.
but so you make the decision that you're going to go forward with it. Let's talk about how you balance the gauntlet that is being on Shark Tank with a business. Do you have any family, like kids or family or anything like
I
that?
do. I do have a family. I have a husband who's like unbelievably supportive and amazing, and I have two young kids, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, babies. And so balancing that with a growing business and applying to Shark Tank. I mean, applying to Shark Tank is a full-time job. It is not. It is not. Oh, let me do this on the side, especially as you get closer to your filming, because you've got to make sure that everything happens the way you want it to happen, right? Like you're responsible for how your brand is portrayed, and that's a lot. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens that I can't really talk about, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into being on the show, and it does take it takes a toll. It takes a lot of time, and so of course along that process, and I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for every entrepreneur that's been on this, but the first thing that I set aside was my own personal health and well-being. I mean, for the months leading up to Shark Tank, I lived like a sorority girl. I mean, or a frat boy, however you want to describe it. It's like, oh crap, I didn't eat lunch. Wait, there's a bag of chips here. Oh wait, and there's an open Coke from yesterday. Let me have that. It's like you're surviving, and that's what that whole period was like. It was a blur. Yeah, it's intense, but I have no regrets.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. I mean, because you're trying to condense time, right? Like you're literally trying to mold time so you have time for your family. And as somebody who has a 5 and a 7-year-old, I know,
Yeah.
it's rough. Trying to do all that and then trying to fit Shark Tank, the gauntlet that is that. Into your life it's intense just for the sake of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
having your own business is one thing, having your own family is one thing, having both is tough enough, and then
Yeah.
and making it all work, and then putting that in is like adding another full-time job on top of everything.
Yeah.
So that is an accomplishment of itself, just getting to go through that. Now going through the process, you came up with your initial offer, which was 250,000 for 10%. Walk us through how you decided to come to that number.
For me, it was pretty straightforward. I took a look at what my sales were projected through the end of the year with everything that I knew was coming through the pipeline. I think the tough part going in front of the Sharks is that they're not really paying attention to what the future is going to bring, even the immediate future. They're looking at, cash in hand. Like, what are your sales right now? What is your profitability right now? And that's it feels to me like that's really what your valuation is based on. And sure, the potential is there, but the potential is what helps seal the deal, not necessarily increase the valuation. So I think, watching a ton of shows. I mean, I did my homework. I was up every night watching every episode ever made, taking notes, analyzing, trying to find trends and tricks and tips and trying to figure out how I was going to navigate it. But it seemed pretty straightforward. It's like, whatever you go in with, they're going to ask for double. I mean, that's just how it goes. So, preparing for that piece was just really going in with a thought to, okay, well, what am I doing this for? And what am I really honestly willing to give up? And what am I expecting in return?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so often that we see the sharks do ask for double, and as I always say, anything over 300,000 is really you're taking a gamble at that point as to whether or not any of the sharks will be interested in that level of commitment of 300,000, 500,000, or more into a business, regardless of how much percentage you're willing to give up or how much they are willing to ask for and take, right? So I think coming in at 250, I think is like just below. It's just below that 300 number, and obviously, you went in thinking this number of 10% could easily be 20% from what you're saying.
Yeah, I did, and I was prepared to fight for my business. I think once you're in the tank, some of that kind of goes out the window with all the excitement, right? Like you're like, oh my God, I got an offer. What? You're like, yes, I'll take it. Before you really think it through, you get kind of caught up in the emotion and the excitement of it all. But I'm really happy with the way that my pitch went on the Shark Tank. I felt so supported from the moment I walked in to the tank, and of course you get a little jittery, and the nerves start setting in as soon as you walk in and you see these people that you've seen a million times on screen, and you're seeing them live in person in front of you. But all it took was a couple of smiles and reassuring nods, and I was off to the races. That's all I needed.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have a killer product. You have what's it called? A fatberg killing product, which I gotta speak to. The first time I ever heard that word was actually through Adam Conover's Adam Ruins Everything. He did a whole episode not a whole episode, but a chunk of an episode talking about fatbergs, which I don't believe I had ever heard of prior to that. It is a very, very real problem that isn't just from grease, but also flushable wipes. And I'm putting those in air quotes for people listening to the podcast, and other things that get flushed down the drains that should not be ever near a drain.
Well, the reality is that it's a problem that it's an invisible problem, right? Because the moment you flush something down the toilet, or you pour something down the drain, in your mind, it's gone. You don't know what happens to it after that. Like it's getting taken care of. It's like, it's all sorted. My job is done. But you're absolutely right. It's any waste product that gets, disposed of through the sewage, be it a drain or a toilet or whatever. The problem is that oil acts like a glue. Like oil is the glue that basically just, grabs all these things and creates the problem. So, of course, yes, I mean, wipes are an issue, and there's a lot of environmental groups trying to deal with just the flushable wipes issue. I think there's a lot more awareness of that now as well. But there is surprisingly little awareness about what happens when you pour oil down the drain. And it's been a shocker for me, to speak with friends and family and, just anyone that you would really think that they would know better. And they tell you, oh, wait, what? I can't pour it down the drain. I'm like, no, you can't pour it down the drain. What are you talking about? So it's surprising, and it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, there's that, and then but just to pile on with I didn't know I shouldn't flush that down the drain. Like medicines, don't do that. Like we all drink from this water too, and it gets clean. Right. But there's been plenty of research done. It's like, yeah, you're drinking antidepressants, and I mean, not to mention the 23 credit cards a year that we digest just through drinking water, which I think it was only it feels like only like 10 years ago, they were like, you drink I don't know, 1 credit card a year or something, or 2 credit cards a year. And now here we are 10 years later, and it's like, yeah, it's like 22.
Yeah, with all the microplastics.
Yeah. Yeah. So, take care of your water, right? And because remember, your drinking water was dinosaur pee a long time, long time ago, because it's the same stuff that's here on the planet, right?
Yep.
It's a community wash.
Yep. It keeps getting recycled in some way or another.
Yes. So going into the tank, walk me through how you were feeling, let's talk about your pitch, right? Because your pitch, before we get to this scene here, let's talk about your pitch and how you were able to going into, like, did you feel like the sharks should know what a fatberg is?
No, because it's not part of our everyday vernacular yet. It hasn't been. So that's been part of my process is that education process. And it's something that everyone needs to be educated on. When I first heard about fatbergs in 2015, so it's been quite a few years now. I had the same feeling, like, what? Like, this is a thing? This really happens? What human beings are the cause? No, like, we've got to do something about this. So yeah, absolutely. I felt like I needed to go in there and educate them on what these things are, why they're a problem, and what causes them, and ultimately why FryAway is the solution.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, not only just for the sharks, but for all of the world on this global platform known as Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So I like. Did you feel like it was going to take long, like your initial pitch was going to take longer than maybe expected to give that education process? Than say oh, make your 60-second pitch. Well, fatbergs are a problem. And like, whoa, slow down. Like, what do you thought? What's a fatberg? Like, tell me that first.
Yeah, I mean, the getting the pitch down to the right length was a challenge. But I think, I've spent so much time talking about this and living it that I do feel like I've been able to dial it down and kind of be able to deliver it in something that's really digestible. So I kind of landed on the pitch pretty quickly, to be honest. Like, I knew what it was that I needed to say. And to really get the idea across, it was important to have some sort of visual to show what it was, which is why during the pitch, they did cut to images of fatbergs, because you can't conceptualize what something like this looks like, right? So it was important to me to be able to show that, to be able to show really how grotesque and disgusting these things are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and I think that goes a long way in explaining it, right? Being able to show it, and once people can get their hands on something, then it's like, oh, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it isn't just like, I don't want to say an imaginary problem, but like it makes it real, right? It takes this concept. It's like, oh, I can see this.
Yeah.
Now I can not only just hear the description of it and like, oh, that sounds disgusting, but I see it and it's like, oh God. No, that's not happened in my drain, is it? Because, I've had my drains clogged here a few times, all the way out to the street, and that is not fun. Let alone our whole sewer system being backed up.
Well, and that's the thing, is that it's like you said, it's an invisible problem, but it's not so invisible in that municipalities spend millions of dollars every year clearing these things out of the sewer. I think New York City alone, I think, spends tens of millions of dollars every year. And they're not doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. Where do you think they're getting that money from? It's going right back to our utility bills. So we're paying for it. We just don't know what we're paying for. So, in some way or another, it's going to come back. It's going to come back as a higher utility bill. It's going to come back in the form of a really high plumbing bill, because your own sink or plumbing is clogged, or what we're starting to see more and more is those sewer overflows. When there's a blockage in the sewer and it rains, that water has nowhere to go, so it just comes right back up and it contaminates our water resources. So a couple months ago, not even like a month ago, there were like 100 fatbergs floating on Toronto's waterfront. How disgusting is that? Like, that's where, during the summer, that's where you want to spend time with your family. And you've got these, massive, waste and fat blockages floating in the water. It's gross.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a heart attack just waiting to happen there. Floating through the bloodstream, or the life stream, water being the life stream, the water, the blood of our lives. Yeah, I'd say so. So Laura, walk me through how you were feeling walking down the hallway there. I always want to say aisle because it fits, but walking down the hallway there, how are you feeling?
I was super excited. There's a lot of waiting, it's like the hurry up and wait type of situation, where you're just kind of waiting to be called, like waiting to be told, okay, you're up. And you get, moved from room to room. And so when they finally said, okay, you're next, I'm like, oh my God, it's really happening. And of course, you've got the nerves and the butterflies and all that stuff. But I think the moment the cameraman starts counting down and those double doors open, it's on. There's no turning back. You just got to do your thing. And so I strutted down that hallway, and the next set of double doors opened, and there they were, and I just stood there and gave them my biggest smile. Meanwhile, my legs felt like absolute jello, like I could have just melted into the carpet. But as soon as I started talking, all of that fell away, and I was in my element, and I was ready to educate and to let them, let the world know what this was about, what FryAway is about, and what I'm about.
That is awesome. So when you when you went in there, did you have a shark in mind that or multiple sharks in mind that you were looking to do a deal with?
I really didn't. I mean, I didn't actually find out until right before who was going to be there. And I think other entrepreneurs probably mentioned that you really don't get a whole lot of information. There's a lot of just be prepared for whatever. And so that's what I did. I focused more on the preparation and not so much on what I wanted the outcome to be. And I think that's just kind of how I am. I'm prepared and I go with the flow. That's just how I am.
So what you're saying is you didn't have a shark that you had in mind?
Not really, no.
Okay, all right. So you start going through the sharks, and it seems like they're not necessarily all a feeding frenzy over it. And you get down to Mark. There was some like Mark's out, Mark's not out confusion. And Lori, was the only one up that was willing to make an offer at that point, right? And
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, so yeah, there was a lot of discussion about, went through all the financials and the history of the business and how I got started, how it was going, what the future looked like for FryAway. And I think, when it came down to it, the sharks kind of got hung up on the fried food situation, like, oh, I don't eat fried foods, and so I'm not sure this is the right product for me. And I respect that. I think I think it's a little short-sighted because who doesn't like fried food? I mean, fried food is joy. Come on. But power to you. If it's not your thing and you don't see the potential, then respect. And so that was Kevin and Robert. And then Mark started kind of going down the route, not so much of not eating fried foods, because I mean, come on, Mark's got to eat fried food. But he started going down the route of air fryers. Sure, there's a lot of people that use air fryers. There's a hell of a lot of people in this country that fry food. And my sales kind of show that.
Yeah, so I forgot that they had eluded my mind that Kevin said that, and I don't remember what I said in the video, in my video review, but rewatching that today, I just was like, it doesn't matter if you fry food or not. It's about solving a bigger problem. The problem is bigger than whether or not you eat fried food. You're not endorsing eating fried food. You're endorsing the salvation for our pipes.
Right. Being responsible. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I think, like, it still would make sense, even though, like, look, I don't eat fried food, but if I did, I would be using this, and I recommend everybody that, as Chef Wonderful, cook and dispose of your fried your cooking oils with FryAway.
Yeah. Yeah, but to each his own.
But at least in the video, you didn't push back on that at all. In the video, it showed like it was like a Mark started speaking right after that. So I didn't know if like there was more there and they cut it, or if you did push back on him.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more. I mean, at the end of the day, they show an edited segment, and that edited segment jumps around quite a bit, so it's not linear, or it's not a linear conversation. So there was a lot of discussion. I didn't push back on either offer, mainly because I felt like if we weren't philosophically aligned, then it wasn't meant to be. And so it just, I just thought, okay, I respect your position and appreciate, your feedback.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Now that I'm thinking about my review video, I think that it was honesty in promotion or advertisement or whatever, and the whole FTX thing was blowing up around him at the time, and I'm like, yo, bro, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I do remember you saying that, actually.
Yeah, and I forgot that I said that, but now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I did say that, and so and look, it is his prerogative to feel that way or whatever, but about fried food, but it's and obviously hindsight's 2020, and this was filmed way before, well, I don't know, did you film in September or did you? Oh, okay, so it wasn't that far away from when everything
fell. It was like 5 months.
Yeah. So okay, but it wasn't July when the earlier part of the season was filming.
No.
Yeah, so it's just I things come back to bite you in the butt. Anyway, so Lori offers a deal. Mark decides to jump in, and you kind of go back and forth with whether or not to, wrangling with whether or not to give up that much equity all at once in the business. Walk us through your mindset and what you were thinking at the time.
Walking in, I had thought that I would not go over 20%. That was my limit. Once there were two sharks on the table, that changed things, because, if you break it down, I know it's an extra 2 percentage points. But you're increasing exponentially the amount of support and network that you have access to, and so that was worth the extra 2 percentage points to me. Quite simply, like it was a snap decision, and I don't regret it.
Yeah, as I don't think you should, because of the fact that, see, one thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about is when you have two sharks, you're not giving up control that much control of the company to one person. It is now
Right.
divided to two
Right.
people. So, it's like, oh, I gave up 50%. Yeah, but you gave it up to like two people. So it's 25 and 25. One of those could seek an exit at any point, right?
Yep.
Or anything could happen at that point. And so it's not just like, oh, now they become my 50-50 partner or 49% or whatever partner. Because it's not, right? It's three people or four people or five people involved.
Yeah.
And I think that changes the opportunity all at once to have, like you said, to have that access to that network. You just double or triple or quadruple the size of the network because of which shark, in which arena they are most aligned with. And access to more capital, right? More access to more phone calls being returned, more access to your episode being replayed because not every episode has one where two sharks get on a deal.
Right. Yeah, and I'm also in probably a fortuitous position as an entrepreneur where I bootstrapped my business. I don't have any debt. I own my company. So it's very little risk in bringing on two powerhouses for 22%. I think I got the bargain in that deal.
You did, right? I mean, if you went in saying my ceiling is 20%, they wanted 25, and you got them to come down to 2%, really one extra percent per person. Each. I mean, you didn't get the money, you didn't double the money, but you added two power players to the team. Like, you're gaining a lot. And at 22%, you still retain enough percentage to be able to go and raise other money if needed outside of those two, if they felt that they wanted other people to be involved.
Yeah.
Or if they wanted to, again, maybe take a small, be diluted a little bit and take a small part of an exit and get some of their money out. Now, the great benefit that you have in your business is that you have a consumable, right? And when you were talking earlier about how the sharks like to base it on sales a lot of times, but that doesn't always make sense when it's not a consumable because it's like they already bought it. They're not going to keep buying. How many of these things are they going to buy? And in the case of, I just interviewed Flated, and it's like they're like, oh, well, these should be selling so much faster or something like that. It's like, yeah. So then everybody has one. They're not buying two. So you actually want to get it because the potential for growth is there. Versus like, we're like we have big numbers, but we already sold everybody that's gonna buy one. So maybe they'll buy another one. Maybe at some
you're
point.
Totally right. I mean, FryAway is a consumable, and it has the potential to become a pantry staple, right? So everybody has a kitchen. Everybody cooks in some form or another. And even people that tell me, oh, like, I think your product's amazing, but I don't really fry. And then like a week later, I get an email like, you know what? I actually do fry. I actually do have oil left over. I need your product. It's what you just don't think about it until you have to deal with it. Right. And so, I think that's where the potential is that it is, at the end of the day, it's a consumable.
But it's also for grease too, right? So like if you cook steak or anything that has like grease that comes off of it, you got to be able to get rid of that grease. And if it's more than just a little bit that you can kind of like get in the trash can, you know what I mean? Like enough that's like the trash can's full enough where it's just going to kind of sit on stuff. You're going to want something to harden it. And so you can get rid of it a lot easier and definitely not putting it down the drain.
Well, and grease is actually even more dangerous than oil because grease gets sludgy. It doesn't fully solidify on its own. People do say, oh, you just let it sit and it's going to solidify. No, it doesn't. Like it gets kind of gloopy. And if you have a lot of it, it's not hard enough to just be able to toss it in the trash, which is why it gets poured down the drain. People pour bacon grease down the drain. And that's worse because as that gets cold and comes into contact with water, that is going to harden in the pipes. So FryAway does work on animal fats. And actually, you need less product for animal fats just because it's already partially solidified.
Well, that is good to know. Speaking on the sales side, not just the kitchens, but so I know in the episode I talked about commercial kitchens and like the potential, because like I'm not gonna buy pouch after pouch after pouch if I got a commercial kitchen. I want to buy like the tub of it. How do I get the 55 gallon? What's it called?
Like
Oh
the tub
God, yeah.
or the
Well,
drum.
bigger than a drum. How do I get
Yeah.
a drum of it? That's what I couldn't think of. Thank you.
Commercial is absolutely a big opportunity, and I get a lot of people asking me about that. I'm very much sustainability focused, and my take on commercial is that yes, it's an opportunity, but it has to be done right. Right? Like I could sell a 50-pound drum of FryAway to a commercial kitchen, but do I feel am I okay with them solidifying 100 gallons of oil a week and having that end up in a landfill instead of being recycled? No, I'm not. I'm not okay with that. I don't want to contribute to that. And so I feel like there needs to be a better solution in place for a commercial. And I'd love to find a way to play a part in that. But it's not as straightforward to me. It's not as straightforward as just saying, okay, I'm going to create a commercial pack of FryAway. Because I honestly don't think that's the right thing to do.
No, ding ding for that, because I didn't really think about it from that perspective in the moment about, they should be recycling it and they should have access to be able, they should have somebody coming to get rid, dispose of it for them versus here, like we don't have, everybody here doesn't grease fry everything all of the time, 7 days a week, right? So there isn't that much, like I don't have a grease trash can is what I'm saying.
Right.
Right,
and a lot of restaurants have grease traps. There's a lot of issues with restaurant, oil collection and grease collection. I could talk about that for literally hours. But like I said, like at the end of the day, we want to be able to offer a better solution than what's available. And the best available solution for restaurants is recycling the oil. At least for now.
Yeah, definitely. I wholeheartedly agree there. So going through you get your deal with Mark and Lori, which is absolutely awesome to see. Are you still in due diligence, or have you guys finally settled yet?
Still in due diligence.
Takes a while.
It is a long process.
Especially with two sharks. From my understanding, once you have that set up, it's very, because they each have their own caveats and things that they want in the deal, and it just gets that much more trickier to navigate for a lawyer. Well, presumably a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get your deal. You head back home. What's some of the things you did in preparation for potentially getting to air in the future?
So I filmed in September, and they don't tell you. You've heard this before. You don't get any warning. You get an email 3 weeks before. And so it's really hard to prepare. My product is made in the US. I source all of my materials in the US. So in that sense, I am fortunate that I have shorter lead times. And so as soon as I got the email, I was on a plane, meeting with my manufacturer, onboarding a new warehouse, just ramping up on all fronts to make sure that I could handle the demand. And that's without even knowing what the demand is going to be. You have no idea, right? And every brand is different. And so it's tricky. It's a really tricky process to manage through. I think I did as well as I could, but it came down to the final hour. I was onboarding my new warehouse, and finalizing a connection to Amazon 2 hours before the episode aired. So talk about last minute. And that was just so that, if my Amazon inventory sold out, I could switch over to seller fulfilled and make sure that orders could still, come in and get shipped out. So that all worked fine. What didn't work so fine is that 4 days after Shark Tank aired, there was a big ice storm in Dallas that shut everything down. And of course, my new warehouse is in Dallas. My manufacturers are in Dallas. And everything closed, even USPS closed. And so dealing with the aftermath of that, it took USPS like 3 weeks to recover from that, to catch up with all the backlog of orders, and people were just up in arms because they weren't getting their stuff. And that was more that was more problematic than anything else that I could have possibly prepared for. And I couldn't prepare for that. It's an act of God. How do you prepare for that?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. It's very difficult, especially like because you just had this huge surge of people, watching the show, and they're probably thinking like, oh, it's just a little packet. It's just a little, like, how can you not get that to me like super quick? Like, come on, you should probably have.
And you would not imagine how nasty people were. I mean, just downright mean and nasty. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing the best I can, and nobody knows. Like, I'm the one up until 4 o'clock in the morning answering customer messages and explaining what's going on. And I'm the one processing orders, and I'm the one like literally doing everything. I was like, half the time I was just like in tears because I just didn't understand why people were being so mean over not getting an order on time. It's nuts.
Yeah. Look, I get nasty comments in my comments all the time, so I know how nasty people can be, and that's without me knowing their address or their name or anything like that, or me even knowing them anything, just outwardly being really sad human beings.
Yeah. But I get it. You get excited about something, you want it, you want to try it. I, as crazy as it sounds, like, I know I probably could have just sent out an email campaign and just let people know, look, this is what's happening. Things are going to be late. I sent individual email messages or personally called every single one.
That's awesome. I mean, it's hard and it's grueling, but that is awesome, and I think that speaks to your character and the kind of look. We all aspire to do certain things and be certain ways, but that's like living it, right? And that's not just talking about it. That's not just saying preaching the gospel or whatever. No, that's living that, right? And being super. What am I doing? That is being super. That is exactly the kind of stuff. Look, I probably would have, if you came to me and said, Joe, what should I do? I would have just said, send out that mass email. If you want to call, anybody who's sending anybody who replies and sounds not happy, maybe give them a call first, just so you're like kind of mitigating it, so you're not getting a deluge of. I mean, there's always going to be people that are like writing nasty things, especially over what it's like a $10 product, like that. Is not. It's not that it's not coming, right? It's not that you're not being responsive. But I think that's super awesome that you chose to do that, and you get the story to tell, right? So even though, again, grueling, especially for a mother of two, to be going through, but that's what we do when we want to be super and stand out, and potentially have, maybe not every single person you call is going to be a customer for life, but I bet you a higher percentage is going to be a customer for life after that phone call that you chose to do. And those individualized emails probably went a long way as well. I know they did, from the response that I got. Love it. So watch party. What did you do for your watch party?
I had a little get together with friends. Yeah, just kept it casual. You know, I live in the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, about as isolated as you can be in rural New Hampshire. And I didn't want to force people to come out to my house. So we just, rented a small room at a restaurant that had a TV, ordered some food, and just, had a good time, being with each other. And for me, it was really about having the people around me that have been part of my journey throughout this from the beginning. I mean, from the seed of the idea all the way through. And so it was a really special moment for me. I'll admit I spent more time crying than celebrating, but there were tears of joy.
And what was the response as far as your website goes? Did you get the traffic? Did you get the sales that you, was it better than you had hoped? Like underperformed, or
Yeah,
how did
no,
that go?
it was crazy. So the episode aired on a Friday, and what was crazy was that the episode aired at 8 p.m. and orders started coming in immediately. And what followed was a weekend of full day packing. My husband, myself, and even my 5-year-old was packing orders. Everybody was working. And that's simply, we still run production for one of the SKUs here in my garage. And so that was the one product that we had to ship out from here. Everything else shipped out from Texas. But they were long days, and exciting. I mean, to put all of those boxes and sacks of orders in the trunk of the car and drive to the post office. And it was super exciting and validating, and a really proud moment for me to be able to share that with my family. And I think part of this journey for me, and what's been just, I guess, super motivating for me, is for my daughters to be able to see everything that's happening, and what it takes to be able to start a business, and that it can all really just start with an idea. I think there's a misconception that, you utter the word startup and people automatically, follow that with, venture capital. You got to go out and raise money. And that's not the case. You can start a business with your savings. And as long as you're willing to learn and put in the work, you can make it happen.
Ding, ding, ding. Absolutely. And I always, I get that question here in the channel quite a bit, in the live streams that I do in the Q&As. Like, I don't have a lot of money. How do I go about making this idea into the dream, the dream into a reality?
Mm-hmm.
And, I was like, look, start with the MVP, right? The minimum viable product, get something, that you can put together and sell. And then take that next step, and take that next step, and take that next step. And then you don't have to necessarily, find outside resources. But hey, if you are looking for somebody, I know a guy with 2 thumbs. It's this guy that's investing in businesses right now. So, go to supertank.tv if you want, up to over $10,000 in funding. But regardless, you don't have to go that route. In fact, in a lot of ways, I always say that it's easier to do it when you don't have a lot of money, because you will find the easiest, most efficient way to do it. Yeah. And you don't have big bills to pay in the meantime. It's not like, well, I have this giant house with these big cars and this giant pool that we, throw money into every year and like have a little good time with it, and all these other expenses that come along with having that, that big paycheck. And I'm going to quit all the, I'm going to quit my big paycheck to go and like do this thing. Like, I don't know.
And there's no reason to. I mean, I kept working while I started my business. And it wasn't until almost a year in that I decided to go all in on FryAway, where it was like, okay, this is actually, demanding more of my time. And I can actually replace my salary now. So yeah, so there's no reason why you can't. It might start as a side hustle, but there's no reason why it can't grow into something bigger. That's the ultimate dream, right? There's also so many resources out there that you can tap into. I've been fortunate to have incredible mentors along the way, and one of the resources I tapped into early on, I don't know if you've heard of the Small Business Administration SCORE program.
Yep.
It's incredible. You have a bunch of really experienced retired executives that just want to help, that want to, pass on knowledge. And you have to look for those types of things, because when you're starting out, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A great example of that was on the first Undercover Billionaire. I think his name was Glenn. Went and utilized that resource to the fullest extent at the SBA. And that, I think, any way that you can get, whether it's like through this channel, going to the SBA, don't listen to people that tell you got to spend $1,000 on my program in order to find out blah, blah, blah. Like, no. That just stop. And like, get the book out, right? Get the notepad out, get the pen out, and start coming up with the problems that you have to solve. And then you go down the list and you find ways to solve those problems one at a time. I think a lot of people want the quick answer, the quick, like, oh, I created this pen and like I was able to quit my job tomorrow because I could sell this pen to anybody, and you can do it too, right? Just buy, just buy my book and it'll tell you how to go and do that stuff. Do it too.
Nice plug there, Joe.
No, thank you. No, look, this book is sales won't save your business. It's the opposite take on, going and just trying to sell. You have to optimize the business as well. Yeah. But that's later. That's a little bit later down the road than like how to make the beginner's guide to $1 million or something like that. Hey,
I'm also a really big proponent for doing things yourself in the beginning, because I think you really need to understand every aspect of your business, and it's only going to make it easier to then be able to onboard other people and to find the right people to continue to build your business. You have to understand it yourself first.
1,000%. My grandfather drove that into my mind a lot, like when I was a very young kid. And it's, it's tough because like sometimes, like, again, we all want the quick fix, but the thing is when you don't understand every aspect of your business, you can be taken advantage of very quickly. And there might not be a lot of money to go around to make to make those right decisions. I always say you got 3 resources, right? Your money, your time, and your energy, and you're going to pull on like 1 to 3 of those things to get it done. And if you don't have a lot of money, then you better have a lot of time and energy, or at least some time and energy to be able to get in there to make up for the sweat equity, as they say, in that process. But yeah, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. You got to know every aspect of the business through and through, so you don't get taken advantage of, and so that you can put people in place to succeed along the way when you start to finally be able to build that team. And I think that, you don't necessarily have to go super fast. It doesn't have to be $1 million investment right out of the gate to like make it all work. In fact, a lot of times you shouldn't, because now you got that responsibility. So it's not just your time, money, and energy that's on the line. It's also someone else's money, their worry about that money, and them applying pressure to you, which could ultimately sink the whole ship without you even
might not be ready.
Realize it.
Because you probably won't be ready if you do it too soon.
Absolutely. So, and that's one of the reasons why, one of the many reasons why I'm not looking to give $100,000 or something crazy, because it's like, I want to be able to help too, and I'm looking for those businesses that I can actively help with the business, not just, throw money at the problem, personally, but. So Laura, how did you come across the video I shot?
I have a lot of friends and family that live in Europe, and they kept asking me like, how do I watch your episode? And your segment was really the only way that people that like my family and friends in Europe could watch the show. So one of my best friends actually sent me a link. She's like, "Oh my God, you've got to see this," and that's how I happened upon the show.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, like it's awesome that you have, friends and family in Europe that were able to watch the show, and it's an unintended consequence, or not consequence, nicety, I guess, of the show being on YouTube, and
Yeah.
gray areaing the copyright and all that, but that's not the intention of the show. It's the intention is business education, and
Yep.
if you're watching it for all the reasons, that's on you. I mean, I'm not going to stop anybody from watching it and adding a little AdSense to the pot here. Heck, that money's going to the super tank, and a portion of it's going to the super tank. So, it'll go towards some benefit at some point when we find the right deal. We
No,
have a
but
couple
they
deals
they
in
enjoyed
process.
watching the commentary too. So it
Aw.
was kind of the perfect little package when they couldn't be here in person to watch it with me. So
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's again, business education. Try to make it entertaining. Try to be, some of the YouTube thing. That's why I got a blue background going on. Uh, but no, that's wonderful to hear. I'm really glad that nobody was like, wow, look at this jackass that is talking all over your video. I just here to watch your video. Like, cool, just hit the fast forward button. It's all there. The whole thing. That's the thing I never understand. Like, I give the whole pitch. Everything's there from
Yeah.
beginning to end. Even when I have to, for copyright purposes, like edit like little clips. Like I try to edit. Like I actually take the time to edit it so that the words and so that the editing looks clean and it
Yeah.
looks like it actually was supposed to be that way. Even though I had to do it because I had to clip 5 seconds out here and 5 seconds out there, and I had to find the most useless. The best part is when like the sharks say something and then the entrepreneur repeats it, because then I'll just cut out both and I'm like, boom, got my time. Like now I can move forward, and get it up back on YouTube. It's so ridiculous. I probably should just ask for permission at some point, but I don't want to tip the apple cart.
Yeah. It's like, you know what they say, it's better to ask for forgiveness, right?
That's what I do. That's what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah.
But someday would be nice to be able to just upload the video and not have to worry about these things at literally
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night, because I record the night that they air.
Yeah.
So like it airs and I'm recording. Like you were the first pitch, you were the first episode to go up, and was
Yeah.
if I had to guess, was probably up before the episode finished airing here on the East Coast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like So I'm looking forward to my Friday off this week. In fact, I was just talking to my boy Matt, who is on the channel from quite a bit when I play games. And I was like, Matt, what are you doing Friday night? I was like, Shark Tank's not on, so do you want to come watch the kids so we can go out and have a dinner? He's like, yeah, I'll find out for you.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But so Laura, so there is a question I do want to ask. I forgot that in my old show I used to ask this question as a standard answer. It was like the second to last question of the show, and I want to bring it back here. And you're the first person I'm getting to ask this question to. What did you want to be when you grew up? Is this where you envisioned yourself?
Oh man. It kind of is. Yeah. I mean, I think you saw from the show, I grew up living all over the world. And when I went to college, I started as a pre-med major, which was not what I wanted to be when I grew up. That was more, you're the kid of immigrant parents, and that's the immigrant dream. Like you're going to be a doctor. So as the, the compliant child, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go pre-med. And man, it took me 3 semesters to just like think, no, this is not for me. And I switched to international business, which is really what my dream always was. Like I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to control my own destiny. And so for undergrad, I ended up doing international trade and finance, very finance, economics heavy, and grad school MBA with a marketing focus. So I kind of felt like I was touching on both sides, and ended up actually going on to have a pretty successful marketing career in toys. So, worked at toy companies around the world, and was really fortunate from the beginning to realize that I had landed in the right place for me. I absolutely loved working in toys. I felt like it was my calling, and did that for almost 20 years. And but the other side of me is a passionate foodie. And every moment I'm either thinking about food or preparing food or eating food. And even on business trips, like my teams knew, like if you're traveling with Laura, don't even try to book a restaurant because that's already taken care of. You're going to be told what you're eating. So yeah, that food's been a big part of my life. So anyway, long-winded way to say that at the end of the day, FryAway has ended up being kind of like that perfect, intersection of my personal and professional passions.
No, I love it. I love it. And because you're not on Shark Tank at this point, can you say some of the projects that you worked on? Because if you did in the tank, it was cut out.
Yeah. So I started out at Fisher Price. I worked on the Disney portfolio, and the very first brand that I worked on was Winnie the Pooh.
Yay.
Which, that was my dream. And I remember my very first meeting. I'll never forget. I was a newbie in the company, sitting next to a designer, and we're brainstorming new toys for the next season. And, as I'm talking out loud, brainstorming out loud, the designer sitting next to me was literally sketching live my words. Like she was sketching the toy that I was describing with my words. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like I have arrived. This is what I was meant to do. And then from there, I worked on everyone's favorite purple dinosaur on Barbie.
Hey, did you see that yet? The documentary, I Love You,
not.
You Hate Me.
No.
My good, well, I'm going to say a good friend, but a friend of mine, Tommy Avalon, worked on that. Did that film.
Oh, I'll have to watch it.
It's a two-part documentary about all the craziness that happened around Barbie. I personally haven't gotten a chance to watch it. It's probably my next one up.
Okay, I think there's a new Barney being launched, isn't there?
I believe so.
Yes, I saw something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see. So from there, I moved to Korea. I worked at the largest kids animation company in Korea. And then moved to LA to work at Mattel, and did a global rebrand and relaunch of the largest action figure in Latin America, Max Steel, and then launched Disney Frozen toys when the first movie came out. So and then I went to Lego. So I moved to Denmark, worked at Lego headquarters, and worked on the girls' business at Lego. So I've really had an incredible opportunity to work with, amazing designers, incredible strategists. And that's kind of also formed who I am and the direction that I've taken.
Wow, that is quite a journey that we didn't get to hear all about in the Shark Tank episode, and that is phenomenal though. And getting to so how did you end up in New Hampshire then? Like of all the places you could live, like, and you have lived.
That's a story. So my husband and I, we were living in Denmark, decided we wanted to move back to the US. And we've both lived in a lot of places and traveled a lot. And so we made a checklist of, all the things that we wanted out of the next place where we were going to live. And Boston kind of ticked all the boxes. So it was a very logical, practical approach to where we would move. And it turned out to be spot on. I mean, I absolutely love Boston. And had COVID not happened, I think we would have been there, very long term. But COVID did happen, and COVID in a city with 2 small kids and no school was not a fun situation. And when we're in not fun situations, what we do best is pick up and move. And we did. We basically decided to move out to New Hampshire, where we had, there was more space. The girls could go to school in person because they didn't have the same stuff that the big cities were dealing with. And so that's how New Hampshire happened. And we haven't really looked back. It was the perfect decision for us at the time, for our family. It allowed us to continue to have routines and to feel some sense of normalcy in a world that was completely down. So that's it. That's New Hampshire.
I laugh because as somebody who had 2 young kids, one not in school and one that was in preschool at the time, and then had to do virtual preschool, which was
horrible.
Look, I mean, God, bless our teacher, Miss Chris. You did great. Like you handled it for the best we could, and you could, but it still sucked. It was not good.
It was hard.
And yeah, I mean, for preschoolers, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just every day, even though it was really tough to deal with 2 young kids from like 6 a.m. until like 9 p.m. when they're still fighting us to go to bed. And I'm like, can you please just go to bed so, mommy and I can eat a dinner and have an adult conversation before we go to bed. Just stay in your room. I don't care. Stay up all night. I don't care. I just don't care at this point. We need to have these conversations to stay sane. And I just so thankful that we live in a big house relatively big house, with a big yard with our own pool and amenities. So it was like, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I have friends that live in the Village in New York, right? Like I have friends that live in other cities, like Boston. I have friends that still live in Boston, right? Like in these apartments and have kids. And I'm like, God, how during that time it was God, it
was hard. And some schools were better than others. The school system for us it fell apart. It was national news how the school system fell apart. My 9-year-old, she was 6 then, she had 2 30-minute online classes per week. That was it. 2 30-minute classes per week.
I mean, that's not a lot, but it's better than trying to force them into like the high schoolers and stuff that had to do like, hey, you got all day to sit online. Like,
yeah, no, it wasn't even worth trying to get her on for 30 minutes. Like it was more disruptive than anything. But anyway, we made it work. A lot of people made it work. It was a tough time for a lot of people. And now I think we're all pretending it never happened. So that's interesting to see too.
Well, I laughed when you said, "Oh, it's 2015." I wanted to say, "Oh, that was just 5 years ago, Laura. What are you talking about?" You get the COVID time warp where it's like, "No, that was 8 years ago," and we're 8 years is pretty darn close to 10 years ago at this point. Yeah, wow, it's all the time. I was at a family reunion over the weekend, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't seen cousin Eddie in like forever," or they're like, "Oh, it wasn't that long ago," and I'm like, no, it was like 2018. That wasn't 2 years ago. That was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like time, like that time is lost. It's so bizarre.
It is. So Laura, tell everybody where they can go and get their own FryAway.
Yeah, I mean, FryAway.co, our website, of course on Amazon. And if you live near a Kroger grocery store, we're in Kroger now, and we're going to be launching in a bunch of other chains very soon. So I'm really excited. We're actually launching in sporting goods stores. You can find us in the camping and outdoor cooking section. In grocery stores, you can find us in the oil aisle. We're making our way to a grocery store near you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, so that's a great point too on the camping side, right? Because so many people cook with the frying pan, and you don't have to necessarily use grease, but you'll have some grease, and you'll have a way of easily disposing of it responsibly.
Well, there's a lot of RVers, a lot of boaters. They need to
Yeah.
eat, right? So
Yeah, definitely. And then having a way of getting rid of the fat instead of just,
Yeah.
hey, take this and dump behind the tree.
Exactly. You don't want to do that.
No, absolutely not. Laura, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. It's been
My
an
pleasure.
absolute pleasure, and I'd love to have you on again.
Anytime. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. I appreciate you being a part of the super community. If you haven't watched Laura's pitch yet, click on up here. If not, we'll see you down in the video below. Take care and go be super.